Hi guys, welcome to Robin Hood Diaries. Today, this show's not going to be quite as dismal as perhaps it sounded in the preview. It was sort of like all the places I've lived, whatever, A to Z or whatever. This is not going to be a realtor's virtual tour, not by a long shot, because a lot of this is what happened at these places. I have lived everywhere from Beverly Hills proper all the way deep into Silver Lake. Um, you're going to hear me say here and there something to the effect of "can't get into that; it's in the book." Sections of the things that happens at these places make up a good portion of my book. The portions where, see, my mom had custody, my dad did not have custody. It's all in my book. But there was a whole, of course, segment living with my father at a million places that is part of my second book. So let's forget all that. So I'm going to go run down these things as quickly as possible with as many tidbits as I can, because this isn't half of it. Okay. So I was born on Bedford Drive. Bedford Drive is, again, Beverly Hills proper. It's right behind Saks Fifth Avenue. That's why we lived there, because my mother directed Saks Fifth Avenue. And of course, they gave her an apartment a block, or literally two buildings from Saks, behind Saks. Okay, that's where she was living when she and my father hooked up for 10 years, believe it or not. Oh my God, if you knew both of them. And he just, flooded the apartment with antiques. My dad was big on collecting antiques, mostly Art Nouveau and Art Deco. So we quickly moved from Bedford Drive to, again, more sort of Beverly Hills proper. This was sort of like, deeper, kind of nicer kind of Beverly Hills. It was right across the street from Beverly Hills High School, way back in the day when it was a way different high school. We've been into that in a couple of episodes ago, so I'm not going to double you up. So, from Beverly Hills, we decided to move all the way over to what is now West Hollywood. West Hollywood used to be an unincorporated area of Los Angeles County, so it was like a county no man's land, sort of LA City. And then LA City, West Hollywood, we got our West Hollywood, and then there was lines all over. It turned into a big jigsaw puzzle, whatever. So we moved into the gorgeous foothills above Santa Monica and Fairfax. I'm sorry, Sunset and Fairfax, going into these gorgeous estate-y old homes, two 3-story homes. Literally, you guys, the bedroom was a pane of thick glass that looked all the way down Fairfax into Los Angeles. Unbelievable. There was a balcony. It was a huge house. I got the maid's quarters, which was full of pins because she was a seamstress. But this was an amazing house. I mean, and it was 2 plots. So we had the main house, and then we had the plot next to it. We were renting. My knucklehead stepfather, again in the book, decided not to buy this home at 80 grand because the plumbing was bad. Okay, so now that, whatever, you can only imagine the dollar value of that home right now. However, it was dream. It was Hollywood dream. It was living in West Hollywood in 1977, 78, AM radio, sunbathing on the balcony, running around the living room, singing Bette Midler. Of course, my, again, knucklehead mother, it was broken into once. Front door smashed in, everything. Oh no, let's not go call the police. Being Liz, let's march into the house saying, "What's up? Who's here?" Luckily, no one was there. Anyway, lots of happened at that house. Then we moved down from the Swiss Alps. No, I'm kidding. That's what we used to call it. No, I'm kidding. Into the flats of sort of that, West Hollywood area. It was sort of northeast West Hollywood. To Genesee, again, another rented home, very, very sort of plain, and that's when a lot of nightmares began within my home, again, in the book. Genesee, so that was Genesee. It was still 1978, which is the best year of my life, even though the bad the good outweighed the bad, believe it or not, in 78. So, from 78, my stepfather and my mother take all the money that I've earned in my whole career, which is about $35,000 up to 12, and bought a house. So they put all my money down on a house, and it was like $60,000 house. So, basically, I think the mortgage was $275 a month, thanks to me. So everything that happened in that home, again, is in my book. So I can't really tell you from 12 to 17 because that's all covered in my book. So let's jump to when I first had to move out of Orange Grove, which was the house in question. I had to move out of Orange Grove because literally my psychiatrist told me, essentially, if you don't move out because of Liz and the surrounding circumstances, that he was just going to recommend some form of rehab or somewhere for me to go, just shy of a lockdown. So I said, okay, I'll get an apartment. So I knew Gwen Wells, who was an actress. She was in Nashville. I've talked about her before. Her and her boyfriend, Richard Perry, famous music producer. They're the ones that give me that beautiful Warhol, the Indian that was stolen from my dad's house, my gift to him. But tiny, tiny little crawl space of an apartment. Of course, dead rats in the cellar and all that. Little itty bitty place. Boy, was that quiet at night, though. Stanley Hills Drive. This was way up in Laurel Canyon and private. Not great for socializing. No parking. But it was beautiful. It was great. So I had to leave there because I went on this junket to Australia. Again, long story, but I had to get rid of the apartment. So jump ahead. Then my best friend, my mentor for 28 years, Delia. You'll never hear me talk about her on any of these shows for many, many different reasons. But she was my best friend and my mentor from 12 up to 28 years. And she was older than me, of course. She knew my father from a movie, etc. So I lived with Delia until I got married. So then I got married. Of course, I moved out of Delia. She had made this beautiful bedroom within the living room with plants and all this lovely stuff we lived with. So I got married. So my ex-wife and I had two apartments. Again, one I've talked about, our first apartment, nice, entertained there, shared a lot of nice experiences. And then we got our second apartment, which was right next to the Beverly Center. Now that, when we moved to that apartment next to the Beverly Center, it was a great deal, through a friend of my mother's, for the area. And that's when I met Tim. Now, we all know Tim was my partner when I was 20, 21, and he was 19, 20, and he passed away after about a year and a half of us together from HIV-related complications, which I knew of from the very beginning. Again, that's all in the book. What I can say about my sweet Tim that passed away was that the whole time he was ill and we were together, we lived in a cold garage. There was no heating. There was just blankets, no television, and it was next to where they parked the cars. Again, in my next book, so we won't get into that. But from there, my bestest bestie in the whole world, who was Tim, my passed away lover, we trauma bonded like beyond you can possibly imagine. His brother, my partner. So we became besties, and we moved into an apartment. Oh my God, in the dregs of Hollywood. Okay, so Johnny and I, after Tim passed, this apartment building was like Betty Davis used to, it's every story of every old apartment building. Somebody lived there and it was a hotel and then it was condos and whatever. So, and this was filth. So Johnny and I, poor Johnny and I, take an apartment there for $395 a month. It was called the Fenmore. Well, at the Fenmore, first of all, you would frequently see the transgendered elderly lady naked from the waist down roaming the apartment building. The apartment building manager was the sheriff from Dukes of HAZZARD, the second one. He lived there with his younger boyfriend, African-American gentleman. So we've got Dukes of HAZZARD sheriff living with this gentleman. I get into a fight with this gentleman where I have to be held. We have to be held back from each other because the Dukes of Hazzard sheriff boyfriend likes to go door to door selling drugs, and I didn't like that. You know, Johnny wasn't a druggie, but Johnny, you had to have known Johnny. So this totally pissed me off. Then I barged out of the apartment. I went to the Dukes of Hazzard guy who was the apartment manager, and I got into it with him. And then the guy came out, and then we had to be held back because my friend Taz also lived in the building, and I was like 2 clicks away from getting my ass beat, or his getting his ass beat, or both of us getting our ass beat. Not only that, but Johnny also managed to buy a stolen car. Now, let's just say he didn't know. So then there's a stolen car parked right below our apartment from some guy with the windshield, a spare windshield that's stuck in the back seat. So he comes home, he bought this car for $50. So another person comes by out of wherever, and so I sell that car to the guy for $25. So I didn't know selling a stolen car. Let's not go there. This was 1991-ish. Okay, because he died in 91. So from the Fenmore, this glorious establishment where Betty Davis apparently lived, whatever, we moved to Holloway. Now, Holloway, again, we're going back into dead central Boys Town, West Hollywood, whatever you want to call it. And this is on Holloway. So Holloway is really, really in there, in the thick of Boys Town, of West, I'm so sorry, you guys, central, I don't know, West Hollywood. And then that became our place for a while during a very, very difficult time. And then Johnny passed away while I still had that apartment and our dog. I used to weep at the door with our dog after he passed, sleeping by the front door of the apartment, whatever, tragedy. Then it was my place. And then I decorated the friggin' hell out of it. It was like really weird, you guys. Like this was like a Ken Russell, model home. So I lived there, black bathrooms. The bedroom, you guys, I am not a Satanist, but I was very eclectic. My bedroom was covered with pictures of our Lord Christ and whips rolled up all over the walls with our Lord Jesus Christ. So, of course, every person or gentleman friend that walked in there thought I was a serial killer, whatever. Anyway, so I moved from Holloway to Hollywood Boulevard, where I thought I was getting away from the mess of those 2 lost years. That's in the book. That's fully in the book. Lots of, there's about 3 to 4, not targets, but people in the book. My next book, fully structured. I'm already on to my 3rd book. So from there, I moved to Hollywood Boulevard by myself in this shitty apartment that's like the shape of the corner of a shoe. They advertise it as having a pool. Well, guess what? The pool is like 2 feet high. It's a wading pool. And that was just yuck. I was never there. I was working double and triple shifts, doing phone sex to pay the rent. And I finally got out of there under questionable circumstances, getting an apartment at the top of Horn Avenue, overlooking the city right above Tower Records. Now, we went into that last night because the circumstances under which I got that apartment were questionable. But point being, I met my husband 3 weeks after I had that gorgeous apartment, so it was lovely. And then from there, lots of shit went down from every direction, and my husband and I moved to Palm Springs. And I thought I was going to commute from Palm Springs to Los Angeles. I know, rocks in the brain. So we lived in Palm Springs for a good 8 months, and then we moved back into Los Angeles, lived in 3 different places until we made our home in Arizona, and here we are in Tucson, Arizona. Mhm. So that covers all the places very topically, believe it or not, of all the places from birth to here. On the custody side of it, again, the non custody side of it, meaning everything involving my father from the time of the divorce all the way through the 10 years that I had my dad until 76, and then 76 forward, which is all kinds of other weird places, like probably as many, with as compelling stories as you've just heard. So I will leave you with that. And what do I say all the time? I love you guys. Sharing this time with you, it really makes life different for me. It makes life, I don't want to say easier, but easier to swallow. What did I just say? Okay, so signing off from Tucson, Arizona, and I look forward to this. You know I do. I'll see you tomorrow. I'll plug in a teaser. I'll get a couple previews in because just cuts. Okay, take care. Have a good one. See you soon. Bye.